Welcome, fellow travelers, to the Never Ending Adventure podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Russell Tyndall. This is my first time going through Adventure Time, and with me, as always, is
DJ Netty P, and this is my
DJ Netty P.
50th time going through Adventure
50th
Time. Maybe now, probably like 8th or 9th at this point, but good favorite show, and that's why this episode today specifically is going to be very, very, very fun and unique and different. And if this is your first time listening, which is kind of why we are introing ourselves like this, is because we are talking about the brand new HBO series, Fiona and Cake. Which
Fiona and Cake, yeah.
We couldn't stay away, man. We talked about it for weeks, and we couldn't hold back, man.
Yeah, I mean, we are in a really awesome spot right now with the podcast. We're like 115 episodes in, and we're starting to talk about season 5.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like we shouldn't be stopping that. What are we doing? But we have to join everybody. I mean, we're all getting to watch Fiona and Cake together, and we're going to do our best to release episodes kind of as they come out, or just whenever we can record, we'll just release an episode, and that's probably going to be how it is.
Yeah.
Till we get back into the main series.
Dude, it is so opportune because we just wrapped up season 4. We just got into season 5. We just finished kind of the Prismo and the time room and the multiverse. And this show, I think, will go into that a lot more. It will reference that. I'm sure that there's going to be plenty of things that you don't pick up the reference on that I'm going to have to like either bring you up to speed or give you a bad spoiler alert for.
That's okay.
Yeah, dude, if we had tried to start this before we even started season 4, I'd be like, no, we can't, because it talks too much about Simon Petrikov. It talks too much about multiverse stuff. It talks too much about what's happening kind of at the end of Adventure Time. So I think we're at the ideal spot. I am scared, though, as we probably get into like episodes 9, 10, 11 of this series, that there's going to be like major spoilers for you.
And I think that's just going to have to be how it is. Like, I think we're just going to have to accept that. And gratefully, I'm pretty forgiveful. So
yeah.
I'm pretty good at like rewatching something I've seen before and going, holy crap, I totally forgot about all this. So
yeah,
I think it'll be okay. I'm not too worried about it, but I'm really excited to get into Fiona and Cake. To be honest with you, going into this, I didn't know what to expect. I saw the trailers and stuff and listened to, I guess a lot of it was just like really the dream sequence. The intro dream sequence is what we're getting in most of the trailers that I saw. So I really thought we were just going to get your typical Fiona and Cake has superpowers kind of a situation. But I loved how they started this off. Did you have any like preconceived ideas of what was going to happen?
Yeah, I had kind of expected to start with like Fiona and Cake as we had seen them in Adventure Time, and then it would break out into more of the other universe Fiona and Cakes and how that ties in with the original Adventure Time. So that's where I was kind of expecting, but just after watching this first episode, I think I really, really like the spin they're about to take.
Good direction.
For sure.
Yeah,
it's a
really good direction. It's so interesting because I was thinking, I don't know if you know this show, 16, like 6, the number 6, and
no,
then
I don't think so. I know Ben 10.
Ben 10, I know Ben 10 as well. No, 16 is like a show from 2004. I think it was on Nickelodeon, and it's just 6 teenagers with like mall jobs. They just hang out in a mall and they have mall jobs. And for some reason, this episode of Fiona and Cake is giving me 16 vibes, which is so weird.
That is
I haven't thought about in years.
Obscure reference, yeah.
Oh my gosh, I haven't thought about that show in so long. Actually, it's based in Canada, which is also just like a fun little fact. Anyways,
yeah. I will say just from the dream sequence in this one is awesome. We're gonna break this down. I am very glad. I don't think I liked the kind of like I liked it as it stood, but I don't think I could have watched Fiona and Cake the whole time if it was like a watercolor Miami blue and
like
orange.
Hand-drawn. Yeah.
Hand-drawn.
You didn't like that?
No, I think it's beautiful. Like, I think it's beautiful in the essence, and I love it as this dream sequence, and Fiona's like a little bit more anime design, and then Cake is just normal Cake design.
We got the Sailor Moon uniform, and then we got little references like the rat bus, which I have to assume is like a cat bus knockoff from Totoro. So
okay.
I was all about it, man. I was all about the fluffy background. And,
I just
and
was
just
like,
doing
I
this art style.
couldn't do like a 20 episode series that way. Like,
okay,
I think it kind of gave me maybe a little Chowder vibes, I guess, where it's like kind of like the backgrounds are a little bit more stagnant, but the kind of the foreground is what's being animated.
Sure. Yeah.
I think it's a great choice, but not something I would say, hey, let's do like 20 more episodes like this.
I was definitely excited when they went into the normal animation. I was glad we got out of that. But for what it's worth, it was a really fun sequence. I loved that we got to see the Ice Prince, and I was just like, I didn't know who this character was. I didn't know what was going on with the Ice Prince. Like, that's clearly, to me, it should be the Ice Queen, right? Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
I was so confused.
You think it'd be the Ice Queen, and I think that's what they start the episode off with, the Ice Prince, because that's what leads to way more of like, okay, something is going to happen that's not necessarily like predictable or totally Fiona and Cake. So like, and then he's got the Simon Petrikov glasses on. So is it actually Simon? It's not Tom Kenny's voice though. So it's kind of,
no.
And we don't really know what's going on.
It's this interesting like call to adventure where he's just like, will you join me on this magical adventure? But again, that's not her call to adventure. We know that's not where we're going with this. And almost immediately you get the awakening with the alarm clock and all the water turns to ice. And isn't it just like a dream to where it goes from some beautiful, amazing, lovely adventure, and then all of a sudden you're drowning or you're falling off of a building or something? Like, my dreams always end with a bad sequence, and then I wake up. Pretty much.
Geez, that sucks.
I mean, but for the most part, I think most dreams have some weird awakening, but I didn't want to go too deep into dream sequences just because, as we talked about on the podcast previously, dreams are really only great to the person who had them, and everybody else just listens to the dream,
Yeah. And for my Adventure Time fans out there, isn't all reality just the dream of an old man? And you'll get that reference later.
I'll get that reference later. Okay.
Oh, yeah. But the dream, and I love it, though. The dream sequence is awesome. And then the way they kick it off, it's like she wakes up, and then we get the kind of the theme song, which I thought the song was fantastic, dude. I thought it was kind of, it reminded me, this is going to be a weird reference. Something about kind of that high-pitched voice of the theme song here reminded me of Shakira's song She-Wolf. For some reason, because it got stuck in my head this morning, and then I was like, okay, this kind of sounds like She-Wolf. I don't know. I don't know if you know that song or not, but
no, I don't. I have been singing that intro song a little bit to myself, and as I'm kind of playing it back in my head, I'm like, it's kind of too real. Like, it's fun and whimsical, but those damn lyrics are like kind of sad and kind of just. Here, let me read you one of them.
Yeah.
Every time I leave my room, I want to die. Even when I'm with my friends, I'm alone inside. Like, that's pretty brutal. What is happening with Fiona? She definitely has this tropey, oh my gosh, this city is so boring. Oh my gosh, nothing ever happens to me, or life is just so bland. I just go from job to job, which feels a little bit like a cartoon trope, a little bit like, oh, well, we've been here. We know clearly this is not going to be forever. This is just currently what's happening to you, and we're going to move past it. But it is kind of, I don't know, it's a little overdone in my opinion, but I'm not going to.
It's an origin story type mentality. They took the beginning of this episode as the setting of an origin story, which in my opinion, I really like it. Maybe it could be overdone, but okay, look at the way that they've changed this compared to Adventure Time. Like, we obviously in that dream sequence, Cake says just like, what does she says, fuck him up, doesn't she?
I don't think so.
I didn't caption it, but Cake, it sure sounded like she said, fuck. I went back and listened to it.
I think it's PG-13. I don't think this is an R show.
Well, you get one F word and PG-13 stuff now. So
well, I don't know,
and it's on HBO, so it's not trying to go to cable. So they kind of have some flexibility.
I don't know, man. I had to re-watch it, but when Queenie was driving away with the bus, she definitely gives her the peace sign, which is supposed to be her flicking the bus off, right? So I think they probably said fluff or something like that.
Oh yeah, but she did say damn it. She did say God damn it. You know, like. So I think that they are setting this as, we know our audience. We know our audience is not kids anymore. And I think that the origin story aspect of that is to go, hey, most everybody that's watching Adventure Time, or Fiona and Cake in Adventure Time, is in their 20s or early 30s. And they match that energy. They go, let's create Fiona as the most relatable character to our audience right now. And that's going to be somebody single, who just got broken up with, who lives in a big city, in an apartment, who likes to, not do dishes and has had odd jobs and is struggling to pay rent and goes to date the sexy DJ Flame nightclub guy. I think that they
is that everybody's story, Ned?
That's everybody's story. I say relatable.
I dated DJ Flame as well, man.
But I say relatable in the sense of, like, if we had started out with what my mentality was like, oh, it's back in the treehouse, and then we're going to go into this crazy multiverse stuff. That this is like, okay, we now are going to go into the rest of the show already feeling that much more attached to the main character. You know what I mean?
What's your early 20s? We've got a moment where we're right out of college. We don't have a ton of money. We've basically, some of us, especially our middle class privilege, went to college, with some of parents' help, and then got out. And then all of a sudden we're paying for our own bills. We've got friends that are doing coffee shop jobs, that are trying to pursue being a musician, trying to be an actor, comedian. We have other friends that went like the finance route and stuff, and they have a little bit of money, but they don't have any time, and we moved up to Nashville, and we were roughing it up here. And there was that first year out of college where we were figuring it out. We didn't have jobs in the industry. We had to figure out a way to get jobs in the industry. So that's Fiona. That's where she is right now. In my mind, she's where her audience is, and they're all trying to figure things out and move on. And it just seems like the adults in the show kind of made it up and made it. You have Butler's Buttery Buns. And I mean, who is Butler other than just someone who loved baking and then took a chance and it worked out, right? Like, I think, and same with the bus tours. Who knew Queenie was going to be able to like have this bus company that was actually like doing a little bit of business, despite, it seems like people are just locals on this bus. And
it does seem like
Marshall Lee's just constantly on there for free. But, who knew that was going to work out? So this show definitely feels a little bit like it is, without a doubt, playing into the core audience and where they are in their lives right now, which I really love that. I thought that was very enjoyable and didn't feel like we were revisiting. And for what it's worth, Adventure Time never really felt, other than maybe the first season, like it feels less childish than other cartoons do anyways.
Yeah. Well, and I love, we're jumping around, guys. So like at this point, we're probably going to miss a little bit of analysis here because we're jumping around just on
I just wanted to go on a little rant. Yeah, but, we keep going through it.
Bouncing off your rant, because like I feel like that's how we're going to get the most out of this. Is just what can we, dig out of each other in terms of deep thoughts and analysis. Is that you had mentioned before, she's not an adventurer. She maybe doesn't necessarily want to adventure. But at the end of the episode, kind of the overarching, like, arch theme of this episode is she says, I wish that maybe she's talking about Cake, but she's, reflecting on her own feelings. She's like, maybe that she's just bored with the world and wants it to be a little bit more magical. And so that's kind of her wish. And I think that's the Dandelion wish with Hunter. Is that's what she wishes for. It's not necessarily, I want to be an adventurer. I wish that everything was crazy. I wish I lived in a treehouse. I wish I didn't have to worry about a job. But just for the world to be a little bit more magical so she's less bored with it. But I don't think she hates her odd jobs. I don't think she hates the friends that she has. I don't think she hates where she lives. It's just a matter of like, it's kind of mundane at this point. Yeah, it's just very mundane and not magical enough to keep her entertained. But that's why I love I don't think that there's not going to be a direct Finn juxtaposition here. I think we're supposed to be Fiona. Fiona's not supposed to be Finn, if that makes sense.
100%. Yeah. I mean, in this world, Cheers is on every channel, you know,
and
like
you'll see why. I was going to mention that. It's a little bit of a spoiler, but they've referenced it a couple of times in Adventure Time, the show. Ice King sings it one time, and Simon Petrikov, and later on in season 5, they do a Cheers reference. So it's kind of bringing that back up for the fans.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I loved, we can get into my theoretically speaking a little bit.
Yeah.
You have Cake, right? And we're introduced to her not feeling well. She hasn't eaten 3 days. She's acting a fool. She's got a fever and just slamming her face in the ice. And as this episode progresses, she's constantly going after ice. She sees something cold, and for some reason, it has this magical aura about it. And I don't even know if this is my best theoretically speaking of all time, but it seems to me that Cake is more sensitive to magic, and especially because she was able to witness the portal that was the ice cream. What would you even call
ice
that
cream
thing?
Cart at the end?
Cart.
Yeah.
I was gonna say van. How silly of me. She could see that there was something magical about that, or it drawed her to it. And I think it's because her counterpoints in other dimensions have magical abilities. Jake has stretching abilities. Cake and Ice King stories has these stretching abilities. Fiona doesn't see this and doesn't witness this because she's a hero. Like Finn is a hero. Finn is not a magical being necessarily. Fiona is able to just kind of, you know, make good decisions and pursue her gut and, you know, like be heroic and have a wonderful, like, I don't know, like personality and view of the world once she gets into like adventuring, right? But Cake, for me, my thought is that there's a little bit of like inherent magic to Cake, even Cake the normal cat.
Yeah.
And that's just a theoretically speaking. I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, my main theoretically speaking comes from the same part of this episode. It's a little different than yours though, but I don't think either. And I actually, guys, I did not watch episode 2 yet of this specifically, so we could have really fun theoretically speakings and not like spoil it for ourselves. But I think that with these adventure dreams that Fiona's having, because she says, I keep having them. I've seen Ice Prince in like every one of them. And Ice Prince does have the magic jewel on his, I think it's like on his cape that's like buttoning the cape together. That somehow the crown in our universe is contacting something outside of that universe to try to come and use the crown. Because as you kind of saw in I Remember You episode, Simon has the crown. He's purposefully trying his best to not use it as much as possible. It's just like kind of hanging on his hip, and he's using it very last minute. So I think that the crown might be calling out to somebody else and be like, hey, come use me. Kind of like temptation power, maybe. That or Simon is calling for help outside of the universe because him and Marcy are dying. And that Fiona, because like kind of like what you said, she's got too much going on, maybe less magically inclined, that the closest kind of thing to her is Cake. So now the crown is beckoning to Cake of like, hey, don't you want to come get the ice? Don't you want to like come into my portal? And like kind of like either a temptation thing or a cry for help coming from Simon and the crown in a different universe.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I like that. That's a good theory. Well, we'll see, man.
Just because I know the rest of the show is about Simon and he's on the cover, so I'd assume that there's a connection.
The very next episode is Simon Petrikov, I believe. Right. It's all about Simon and probably Marceline, right? Or no, because that'd be Marshall Lee. I don't know. It would be Marceline of. We'll figure it out. We're not there yet.
We're not there yet. I know. But that is why this is fun. That's why this is going to create 4 very cool new podcast content coming from us. We're going to be watching these week to week. We're going to be probably releasing them on not just Tuesdays as we can quickly as we can get them out to you guys. Yeah. But we're going to have a lot of fun, theoretically speaking. A lot of things where you're going to go back and go, you guys were stupid. That wasn't it at all. It's because it's all fresh and new.
That's fine. Ned, I want to talk about her odd jobs. This is like her 5th job this year that she got fired from. And it was working on Queenie's bus tours. I couldn't imagine doing that. That sounds like one of the worst jobs to have, where you're standing in front of strangers that probably didn't want to do this. Like, one person in their group wanted to go on these bus tours, but then everybody else is just like, why are we here? And
so you're telling me you would never do those Nashville bus tours?
No,
and
not a
drive
chance.
around
Not a chance.
I would do it. I like public speaking and talking about the city where I live in, but I could see how about after a week that would get really old, you know?
Well, I love that Marshall Lee just like totally just snuck in for free. It. He's just like constantly there. I mean, that'd be how you would make it fun, as your friends just kind of join and you have little like inside jokes or something. I don't know.
In my opinion, too, what I think it almost looks like this is just a public city bus, like a public transportation bus. And then that Queenie's business is just like, oh, we have a tour guide that sits up front and just tells you every day, here's the city aquarium on the same route every day.
But she has note cards. I don't know. That's so funny.
I still think that's the funnier concept, to be like, what if you did city bus tours, but like on the city buses? Like, that's what makes it funny.
Well, it's interesting. We get confirmed, you know, in that intro song, we see that she kisses DJ Flame, and then the very next scene, he dumps her. Mm-hmm. And so we get confirmed that actually happened by Marshall Lee. Yes. And of course, Marshall Lee is a star in this episode. I mean, good grief. The tops for me in this episode is because of Marshall Lee. The song that he sings when he's busking is without a doubt my tops for this episode. And he's voiced by Donald Glover, which is so freaking cool to me. I'm so happy they got Donald Glover to voice him. It makes so much sense in my mind that he voices that character. And it was a joy to get to listen to him act as Marshall Lee.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping, because it looks like at the end of this episode, it does look like they blast off into another dimension, that this is not the last we see of this Marshall Lee.
Same. Yeah. I hope he joins somehow. It's so great that and we're getting off the job top. I want to get back to that, but they have this portal, right? As we're getting into season 5, we're talking about the different dimensions and how each dimension has its own universe. And this is a portal to another dimension that we're about to visit. And it just feels like, oh, this is reality in some dimension. This is truly Fiona and Cake happening, and this is all real. This isn't a dream sequence. This isn't something being made up by the Ice King, like in the very first Fiona and Cake episode, which I thought for a moment that, oh, maybe we'll have Allie and we'll have Jackie do the intro for this. And I was like, no, we just need to go into this, like, because that's what we did on that first episode.
If we did that, it would throw off all the rest of the episodes too.
Anyone new would be so confused and be like, what the heck is happening? Yeah. But it's interesting. Did you ever have any odd jobs growing up that you kind of felt like were the bus tour thing? Were any of these other jobs that we see Fiona in the intro sequence having?
Nothing to that extent per se. I would say from top to bottom and most relatable to this was folding clothes at Urban Outfitters in Hollywood. So that shit was just like, it's weird. It was a weird job to have for a while. The next would be like, I worked for a catering company all summer. So it's just very like, show up dressed in a fake tuxedo that's covered in stains and smells like shit, and you haven't washed it in 3 days, and you go cater for a bunch of rich people. Like, that was a weird one. And then below that, I would say I had one more. That was just like an odd job like that. I lifeguarded though, but that's kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, lifeguarded, I mean, that's like, it feels more like a high school job, or maybe while you're in college.
Not really
like
a grind job. Yeah.
I did pest control, of course, because my family was in pest control. So I did that for 3 summers. And then I was in a warehouse intern at a company that sold used Cisco products. And it was the worst. I mean, there were moments that I liked, but cleaning like old phones and stuff like that were just going to be sold business to business was not fun at all.
Yeah, that sounds literally like a job to even really, really hard to make it sound like you enjoy any bit of it.
Oh, no. Yeah. The best part was goofing off with the other employees when the boss wasn't in the warehouse, like, so that's, I don't know. So I can relate a little bit to like where she's at with these odd jobs. I mean, my other one was working at a country club where I was just basically setting up the golf course in the mornings and throughout the day, that's a classic odd job for someone right out of college. But
I threw pizzas at Mellow Mushroom for like 2 months.
There you go.
That's kind of like that same odd job, and then ended up quitting. That's got to
be on your resume still, right? That's still on your resume, surely.
I can make a damn good pizza, son.
Oh man, well, it's so fun. We go into Butler's Buttery Buns, which is, unfortunately, I've never worked at a coffee shop, but it is truly one of my jobs that in another world, I did that for a bit. Like, I don't know why. It sounds really dumb, but I've always wanted to be a barista. I was like, I just feel like that'd be really fun to like be behind the counter. Hey, what's your order? Like, hang out. But I know it's not all, I hear nothing but troubles from that industry, when you're working with people and stuff. But
I think just service industry, like, plus when you have people like before they get their coffee, they're typically pretty much like a-holes. Like, so like I could see why that's a bad one. And coming and cleaning, getting ready for coffee in the morning. But Gary seems to be really, really enjoying it. Gary seems to be, this is his passion. So that
he's
baking,
obviously he's the bubble gum of this world, right? So
gumballed.
Yeah. But he's a perfectionist. He's making this swan with the cream and it's perfect. And he's trying to perfect his invention, which are these gingerbread cookies. Like he's Princess Bubblegum essentially, and personality. And it's really cool to see that reflected in him. And that swan, of course, and there's just so many references. We're skipping through a lot of references, a lot of characters and stuff.
I've got a little list of references. It's not every single one of them, but it's kind of some of the ones I caught, some of the obvious ones.
But the swan was obviously the swan that Princess Bubblegum rides on occasionally that we get to see. And I just, like I said, just the perfectionist thing is so great, though I do have an issue with the cream. I know this is a thing with the cream art and all that, but if he's such a perfectionist, why is he using just like an unstandard amount of cream? He should have like it measured out, and then you shouldn't be able to make a swan stupid rant. It's a dumb rant, but it just bothers me whenever I see someone like making a cream flour, and I'm just like, how do you know you did the right amount of cream? You're going to mess up my beverage because you're not putting in the right amount of cream. Sorry. I haven't had my coffee today, so maybe I'm a little ornery, but
I've had my extra coffee today, so maybe I was just like, I'm not even thinking about that.
Yeah,
but
and then I just was like, CB, cinnamon bun.
Yeah, we had CB, cinnamon bun, crazy
6
old lady,
butterscotch
which
lattes.
Is amazing. I thought of all of the references to other characters that was in my top 3 was the CB cinnamon bun to the old lady.
Dude, that's 36 cream puffs. She ordered 3 dozen cream puffs, and if it's a baker's dozen, that's 39.
If it's a baker's,
that is too much. She's like,
that's like going to Dunkin' Donuts and crushing a box of Munchkins just like by yourself.
Oh man, while we're here though, you got to know my sexy character of this episode.
Give it to me.
Yeah, I mean, can you guess it? It's pretty obvious.
It's Gary.
It's got to be Gary. Gary's easily. He's my second favorite sexy Gary character, right behind Sleepy Gary from Rick and Morty, of course, because everyone knows
Sleepy Gary. We're gonna go. Maybe we do a special episode one week of Ned and Russell's top Garys.
Everyone knows that sleepy characters are sexier than non-sleepy characters. That is just a fact of cartoons.
That's a callback to like season 3 of our podcast, I think.
Oh, dude, I'm telling you, man. I'm full of them, but it's true, and that's why Sleepy Gary's number 1. But this Gary is a close second, and I really enjoyed that interaction she had and the relationship that her and him have throughout this cartoon, and it doesn't feel like it's where Fiona has a crush on him yet or nothing like that. Like, we're just kind of playing it like they're friends, and same with Marshall Lee. And the only one that there was like, oh, is there tension or not, was Hunter, which is the Huntress Wizard, I guess. I
was going to say, Hunter got my sexy character of the episode.
There you go. Because
and again, They did a really good, I think, kind of play on the Huntress Wizard episode that we'll get to later, obviously. But not only that, but just like eye contact while talking about his cool like flower oasis of weeds and dandelions and all the flowers. I thought it was incredibly deep. I thought it was, the only thing I didn't like about Hunter was the short shorts. That was kind of like threw me off a little bit.
That was the best part about Hunter. Those
and
thighs,
I didn't like
baby.
will you step forward into the bushes, please? And I was like, that sounds so creepy, dude.
No, the issue with Hunter is he ain't got no knees. I'm pretty sure that character ain't got no knees. What's up with that, man? It looked like he was standing there straight up. And I'm like, where are his knees?
But whatever it was, I think in terms of just like that Huntress Wizard episode, where basically, to spoil it for you a little bit, Huntress Wizard and Finn hang out for like the entire episode, but there's just like a weird sexual tension that they kind of act on, but they don't really act on. But they acknowledge it, but they just go, no, it's not going to happen, you know?
So there's no tension here, though. With Hunter and with Fiona, tension, but it's very awkward.
He's trying to make it
definitely
a sexy encounter.
But she's not into it at all. And they aren't connecting. Again, he's like, oh, Ellis? And he's like, no, actually, my name's Hunter. And he's like, okay, cool, whatever, move on. Like, let's.
That's why I don't think there's that direct parallel. Like, she's not going to do everything that Finn does at all.
But I loved, like you were saying, like I did love his story about all the plants, and any plant could be considered a weed depending on context is a very beautiful line. I really appreciated that. So
that's what made me like, you know, watching this episode, I was like, what feels like Adventure Time, what doesn't feel like Adventure Time? And I was like, that moment where they were like, let's get on this really poetic, almost Buddhist kind of topic here in the middle of her just being like, yeah, whatever, my cat's sick, is a very Adventure Time-esque moment of like, let's pause, kind of make you think about life a little bit, and then have our my tops of the episode is LSP feeding and talking to the squirrels. Like, I was not expecting that. I don't know what I was expecting until immediately they showed he lives in the woods. He's got a big puffy purple jacket. He's talking to the squirrels. He's named all the squirrels, and he's like, "You're my favorite." And I was like, "This is probably the best translation of exactly what LSP was doing." I'm like, "Get off me, Ricky!"
Yeah, I love that he's just sitting there, and he's like, "Oh yeah, sure. Let me talk to you about your cat, and put your cat on this rusty old car hood, and we'll figure this out. Like, what's wrong with your cat?" Tries to use the catnip to like. Maybe something magical is happening or whatever. And he's like, oh, I could just sense what's happening with the cat. But the whole time he's talking about Fiona. He's like, he's reading Fiona. He's not reading the cat.
He's not reading the cat. But I thought the best callback was when he's gets super pumped about bag food, eats all the cookies, has raspberry jam around his mouth, just like LSP put the raspberry lipstick from the tarts on her lips. And I was like, that is a deep cut callback that I'm not sure everybody picked up on. But I was like, I love it. I just... through and through, I hope this is not the last of LSP we get. We might get Lumpy Space Prince if we go back to OO in some capacity, but
LSP is definitely not my most punchable character this episode. I was thinking about it because, of course, character? LSP. I do actually, but LSP as actual LSP is almost constantly my most punchable character, unfortunately. But in this episode, my most punchable character was I guess it was two blonde ladies that were in black and white, which were Lemon Grab 1 and Lemon Grab 2. And they were just like screaming at their camel puppy. It was like, it was a golden retriever or whatever, but it was kind of like the camel, just like, sit, I command you to sit. And I wasn't about it. I was like, man, they could have done without that Lemon Grab reference in my mind.
You're not going to like my most punchable of this episode at all.
Who's your most punchable character? Who is it?
I think it's Ice Prince, man. I don't know why. It gave me the villain from Scott Pilgrim vibes. Like, you're kind of buttoned up and put together, but something about it seems kind of greasy and creepy. And he's wearing a cape, and I was like, he's wearing a white suit with a cape.
Can't trust a guy in a cape.
You can't trust a guy in a cape like that. So that's why I was like, I might punch him. if he doesn't redeem himself a little bit more and prove to be like actually cool. So
yeah, he was mysterious, but I didn't really need any more of him as we were continuing on with this story. I'm really glad they moved away from that. And like you said, the artwork would have been really distracting. I'm glad they went into the art style that is typical for the rest of the episode. It definitely made it more enjoyable to watch, I think. And as a dream sequence, having the background be fuzzy or fluffy and like dreamy or whatever, right? Makes total sense. So it was cool.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, we want this. They're making this show to make it feel familiar to the audience as well. So they don't. You could have gone very new animation. They even kind of. I definitely make Fiona look. Well, I guess Fiona in the original show is probably a little younger than, I guess, this Fiona, who is definitely in her 20s. But yeah, that was kind of just my thought about that. My most punchable.
Yeah.
Man, well, I have a list here. This could spark some good conversation, but I had a list of what I could find, and I picked up. And trust me, guys, I missed a lot. Every time I paused it, there was something in the background where I'm like, oh, I think the artist might have had the crystals on the book in the bookstore to represent the crystals of all the princesses. There's a lot of stuff we could do, but I wanted to do the obvious ones. In the theme song, you see Science the Rat as Cake's chew toy. We have the BMO clock. We've got Gary as Gumbald, Marshall Lee. I think there is a goose that runs in front of her apartment at one point to represent the goose that's like always out in front of like kind of in their pond outside. DJ Flame. When they drove by Ash and the representative to Ash, Marceline's old boyfriend, and standing next to Wildberry Princesses, kind of counterpart. On the bus scene specifically, we have Starchy, Hot Dog Princess, a Banana Guard, Abracadaniel, Marshall Lee, and what I think is one of the water nymphs, or one of the mermaid nymphs that sits around kind of in Jake and Finn's pond. You've seen them maybe before.
Yeah, we have in the party time episode, or what is it? The episode where Jake turns into a party. I don't know, animal.
Oh yeah,
is it called Party Animal? It may be.
I think I can't remember. That's not the episode name, but when he goes and is hanging out with Party God,
well,
I think it's something like Party Animal.
Let's take a pause there though, because in that scene we do see a statue that looks very familiar to me. It certainly looks like Betty.
That's what I thought too. I was like, is this in some way a Betty statue itself?
Yeah, and I think it's totally supposed to be. And they said that it was renovated 12 years ago. And I started to watch another video, and they were talking about how that supposedly is foreshadowing for an event that happened with the 12-year time span in Adventure Time. People may pick up on that who know the show better than I do, but I just wasn't sure what that was actually referencing. But I think it's without a doubt a Betty reference.
Yeah, well, we could get into 1,000 theoreticals of, remember there was one part of when she goes to see Gary at the shop, she was like, how long have we known each other? And he goes, I don't know. I think forever. And I was like, okay, that's a pretty vague answer for that. So maybe there is some sort of aspect of Fiona is trapped by some, magic power in this fake, and she's been trapped for 12 years. And that at the beginning of this, she's been on this, that's why she keeps having new jobs and they just keep turning over, is that she's in some sort of what do you call it? Limbo of.
Yeah. A Groundhog's Day sort of a situation where she can't ever escape. Day. And she just magically appeared there one day. And that is a very interesting concept.
And then I think into that. Another what if she's trapped in this limbo, and then now the Ice King or Ice Queen or however it plays out, Simon Petrikov is saving her by using the crown to call her out of her trance state limbo. Dude, just so much good. Only good things can happen in this show. Only really, really cool callbacks and really, really good episode connections are going to happen.
But Cake's portal closes. That's the one thing I'll say is as Kate jumps through the portal for the ice cream, it looks like it closes behind her. how is Cake going to get Fiona into the portal or bring her to the next dimension? I wonder, as we get into the next episode, we'll probably dive deeper into that because this is not the last that we've seen of Fiona and Cake, obviously.
Yeah. Obviously. The whole show is called Fiona and Cake.
The dumbest take. That was the dumbest take of this podcast.
Of the day. Is that maybe Fiona and Cake will be in the rest of the show.
Fiona and Cake are done. This is a Simon Petrikov show now.
I do
Let's just get about the Finn. I miss Finn.
I'm thinking about trying to spoil something for you that might be worth it at this point going into the rest of this analysis.
Yeah, give it to me, baby.
There is a episode later on in Adventure Time when you see Ice King writing more Fiona and Cake fan fiction. You see he's like reading it to people or something like that, and there's like a character that's obsessed with the writing who's pretending to be Fiona, and she's not actually Fiona. And then she's like, "Where do you get the ideas for these books?" He's like, "I don't know. They just kind of come to me." He falls asleep that night, and a red laser like comes into his room and like puts the Fiona and Cake stories in his head. So they did reference in the show that there is some sort of multiversal aspect of Fiona and Cake in Ooh, and it's not really, we didn't know if it was from the past. We didn't know it was from the future. We didn't know if it was from a different universe. And now I think that episode specifically, they never gave answers to, and they are like kind of backing up and filling in that kind of loose end for sure.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty cool.
So yeah, if that makes you any more excited, why I think a lot of Adventure Time fans are going to get a lot of answers that they wanted from a loose end that was probably purposefully left untied.
No, I'm totally convinced on this. Even after just one episode, I know this is going to be a pretty good show, and I may eat those words in 5 episodes, but I'm so excited. It feels like right now we're in a weird, I want to say renaissance. It's obviously not a renaissance, and it's almost like not creative because all we're doing is like recreating old, media. Basically, we're taking old franchises and rebooting them. Still, we've been doing that for the past 20 years.
Yeah,
but I do think like this feels like a really good aspect of that. Like this feels like we're in a really good spot with Fiona and Cake, and then also today, I guess, when this episode came out, and I promised myself I wasn't going to talk about this on this, but it's my rec for this week. The new live action One Piece also came out, and there isn't really a great example outside of maybe Rurouni Kenshin or like the Japanese Death Note of like anime being turned into live action and it working, and it's working so far, and it's blowing my mind, and we're just having a blast watching that and this. So it feels like this is like peak streaming television for me right now, and that is so exciting.
You're getting like all the shows, and that like One Piece is a redo. I think this has got to sit in a similar world where like people want their childhood, stuff. I'm just glad that they're not trying to just do an Adventure Time movie live action, or they're just recreating the show with live action. I'm so glad that they're going, hey, like we did the 4-episode Distant Lands stuff. And I was like, oh my God. And we filled in gaps, and we finished storylines, and we answered questions. And I think that they're like this show, if they're especially doing more than 4 episodes, we're going to get so many answers. We're going to get so many callbacks. We're going to get so many references. We're going to get, again, the stuff in Adventure Time that was so deep, like Golb, like was very like deep and intense and didn't give you too many answers. We're going to get all that. I think if this is what they consider to be their last ditch Adventure Time, like they're going to fill in all the gaps, which is going to be fun. Or if they plan on doing 3 seasons of this show, I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to definitely be discovering it kind of retroactively as we're watching this. So I'll learn this first, and then we'll go back and probably meet these callbacks as we go through the original series. And I'll just be like, oh, crap.
We've talked about most all of them except for Lemon Hope was selling CDs. I did not know the reference of who was standing next to him handing out free samples. I think the guy with the silver balls was either Bubble from the Bimo and Bubble episode, or James Baxter trying to entertain people with his balls.
You mean the Tashigi balls?
Yeah, that's tashigi balls.
Clearly not a boring world. You got tashigi happening. That's
You've got actual,
so fun.
Oh, terrible toy.
Well, maybe that plays into like how weird and whimsical and like the oddities of this world that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Is this real? Is this a real situation that's happening? Does Cheers, as the only show that's on television, make sense?
Yeah, another
really
glitch thing.
Sense?
She kept changing channels, and only Cheers was on.
Yeah,
which is again, Simon Petrikov in the real world knows Cheers, and the theme song is always like in his head. So again, if this is Simon Petrikov freezing Fiona to keep her alive through the apocalypse, and this is like her limbo state, and the Crown's creating this fake Groundhog Day, the only show that would be on is Cheers. Just another man. If we talk about this too much, it's just going to be like me trying to put the pieces together poorly.
As we're talking on a whim. I do have an issue, Ned. My one issue with this episode probably is going to have to be with my tops, which was Marshall Lee. Mm-hmm. He is like, oh yeah, I've got a friend. Like, you can't afford going to the vet. Trust me, I got a friend. His name's Ellis. Just here's like, what were these directions to Ellis? Okay, so you go into City Gardens, right? And then you take a right into the bush. And then you're just going to keep going further and further into the wilderness. And then eventually you'll trip on Hunter, or you'll come across some guy speaking to squirrels. And I guess my beef is like, I would never take my dog there. Why is she taking her cat to this random stranger in the woods?
I mean, she is saying like, I'm not going to be able to pay. I'm either going to like see what's wrong. And then she doesn't really know what's wrong with Cake. Besides Cake's acting weird. So different thing, I'd be like, okay, like if I have no money and if this is the difference between me making rent or not, and Marshall Lee's like I know a guy who might be able to help. I mean, I'd take that. I would take that. It's sketchy directions.
But you wouldn't bail as you're going through the woods in City Park? You're not going to bail?
No, I know. Okay, at that point I would have bailed. But in terms of just like, meeting somebody's stranger who maybe can or can't help, I'd be like, I think I'd go with the help, but maybe not in the woods. Maybe not walking through the woods to get help.
Well, hey, we even saw the Ice Queen in this, and she was selling ice cream right at the very end there. And that's
why I was a little. It had the translation again. There's the Gumball, there's the Marshall Lee, all in the different universes. But like, is the Ice Queen just a funny little cameo, or is it?
Well, how appropriate that the portal was with her.
The portal is with her. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So, well, what's your lesson? What are you taking away from this first episode of Fiona and Cake?
Yeah, I didn't have a good way to like put it into one sentence or something that's maybe more like ornately described. But I just think that the cool thing going into the real world aspect and watching Fiona, is that our version of adventuring sometimes just looks like going about your everyday life. And sometimes it's bland because it's not very magical, but that's kind of why I brought that point up earlier. Is it's like, if you don't think it's bland, like that's your adventure, man. Like going through your 20s, having a cat, having a job, having your friends, that is like kind of the adventuring you're supposed to do in your life. That's kind of my lesson. I guess it's not really a lesson, but it's kind of what I got out of it.
That's great. I like that one a lot, man. My lesson.
Do you have a deep one or a funny one?
Usually I bring a funny one. I think it's more serious this time, right? And then maybe I can spin it into something funny, just on a whim. So my lesson was any plant could be considered a weed. It just depends on context. And how I'm going to try and spin that into something funny is I'm going to say it's a metaphor for the killing joke, right? Just like any one of us are one joke away, one bad day away from turning into a villain. Any plant is one wrong planting, one wrong spot away from being considered a weed.
Oh man, you kind of took that into the nihilistic perspective of it.
A little dark, yeah.
I would have taken it into the optimistic perspective.
All right, we'll do that.
Like,
is it goofy though? Come on.
No, it's not goofy, but like that.
Give me the jokes, Ned.
Pull out of that phrase is that like, hey, like you may be a total goofball and do funny voices or something, and that Yeah, maybe.
So you're a weed where you presently are, but
yeah, you're a weed where you presently are, but that's appreciated, and that's a beautiful thing put into the right concept.
Somewhere else, other people are going to love that. Okay, there you go. That's actually
that would
sick.
be my lesson, not
that's
your.
Really good.
You took it in the way of like
that?
Everybody's almost a villain. Yeah,
you can take that one.
Yeah, you can take that.
Okay, I'll take that. Whew, good. Whew, I'm so glad I came up with that lesson. That was so good of me.
Oh yeah, man, you're a deep guy, dude. Yeah, you're definitely not a villain.
Oh man, not a villain at all. None of us are. None of us are one joke away, one bad day away from. That's actually a really great comic book, and also.
Movie. I didn't have a real recommendation this week, maybe, but Russell's reference, go watch The Killing. It's been a few years since I've watched The Killing Joke, but it's a fantastic animated film.
Killing Joke, though, does start out, there's like a whole, what is it, Batgirl thing where it's like Batgirl and Batman, well, they won't, they will, sort of a thing. Yeah. And it's like, they could have cut that into like 5 minutes and then just got straight into The Killing Joke, which is the arc from the comic books. But for whatever reason, they just really wanted to sell you on her as a character because, of course, her father, Gordon, is a big part of that storyline.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like trying to save her or whatever. So I don't know, it's, that first part of that movie is hard to watch, but once you get past that, it is really great.
Yeah. That Batman's really not super good guy anymore. Yeah. It's a weird one to watch, but it the way it ends, you're just like, oh, damn. How did I just watch a WB Kids movie that's like ended really, really deep? So go watch it.
Well, did he do it? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways.
I don't know.
Yeah. Thank y'all so much for joining us. We're going to keep releasing these, just like we said earlier, as they come out. We've got some other really exciting stuff coming out, though. If you're still here and if you like the podcast, we're going to be releasing a Patreon pretty soon. And we had previously said on an episode that won't air until well after the 12th that we were going to release it on the 12th. Ned, what are you thinking? Just 12th, 19th? What Tuesday do you want to release?
Somewhere around there. We've got some content to release on there. It may be more or less consistent. But now that we're kind of picking up on this stuff too, the Fiona and Cake might take a little priority over Patreon content.
I think so too.
Or Patreon content maybe
more. It'll be more than just one episode a week if we can handle it. We're going to do our best to try and release as we go with this. And there's no promises that we'll be releasing as they come out, but we're going to try our best or something around that.
Yes, but they will go along with our NEAs. So we'll keep numbering them the same things. Just be on the lookout for the titles, and the descriptions will be describing this is Fiona and Cake episode 1, Fiona and Cake episode 2.
Yeah, and if you really care about the
trying
Patreon,
our best, some of those might have season 5 sprinkled in there with Fiona and Cake, just all depending on our schedules.
Yeah, and if you really care about the Patreon, of course, follow us on Instagram at Never Ending Adventure Podcast, and we'll be talking about it as soon as it comes out. We'll be posting about it, and of course, if you are a Patreon member, either the lovely tier or the sexy tier, you'll have access to NEA and Beyond, which is our podcast for the Patreon, which has been really great. We recorded 2 episodes so far, and I've thoroughly enjoyed both of them. So I can't wait to see where that goes and what weird conversations we end up in.
It'll be fun.
Yeah. Check us out, TikTok, Never Ending Adventure Cast, Twitter, NEA_podcast. Email us your thoughts, your opinions. Get on the Traveler's Log. We've got a number of those. As we go through the series, we may do some Traveler's Logs, but I'm sorry we haven't gotten to all of them recently. And YouTube, I don't know. Just check us out on YouTube.
Same podcast, different platform.
Yeah, same podcast, just a different platform. But yeah, man, can't wait for this series. I'm really excited. Can't wait to see where the next episode goes. And Ned, I'll be talking to you soon about it.
Yeah, I know. It was very, very hard for me to not watch the second episode this morning because I watched the first 30 seconds and I was like, I already am just loving this, but I got to hold back before I just spoil our first episode review of it. I might spoil drop for myself. So I'm excited to get to the next one.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, watch along with us and we'll see y'all pretty soon. Pretty dang soon. But until then. Well, you do it. You do yours first this time. All right. Party forever.